Good afternoon. Thank you for joining the Women's Foundation for the State of Arizona. I'm Gauri Gladish, Director of Research and Advocacy.
And I'm Michael Abramson III, the Advocacy Coordinator, and we make up WFSA's advocacy team.
At WFSA, we innovate to create social, political, and economic change that achieves equity for women and girls of all identities. Last year's legislative session was our most ambitious, and we were pleased with our big win to secure $10 million of ongoing funding for the support and expansion of the home visiting program, Healthy Families Arizona. It's been just over a year since WFSA expanded to become the Women's Foundation for the State of Arizona. And in that time, we expanded our efforts to build partnerships across the state. And we launched our statewide advocacy coalition to encourage individuals across Arizona to get engaged with WFSA advocacy.
Now, WFSA has been advocating for women and girls at the Arizona State Capitol since 2014. Our advocacy is designed to create system changes that support real economic and social growth for women and girls of all identities throughout the state. We are thrilled to have you join us today for WFSA's 2023 legislative kickoff event. And over the next hour, we will review the 2022 election results, get some great insight from our partners over at Goodman Schwartz Public Affairs on Governor Hobbs' State of the State address. We'll introduce our 2023 legislative priorities. We're going to review some opportunities for involvement through our We Network, the Advocacy Coalition, and some upcoming events. And we'll close out today by announcing a really creative contest for advocates and supporters as well. And with that, I'll let Gauri start us off.
Thanks, Michael. The 2022 midterm election was historic for the state. The results of the election led to a 29 Democratic to 31 Republican split of the Arizona House of Representatives and a 14 Democratic and 16 Republican split of the state Senate. After 8 years, Arizona has elected its next female-led executive office with the election and swearing in of Governor Katie Hobbs. Switching next to the next slide, the graphic we have on the screen highlights the result of the midterm election, including many of the key races WFSA was tracking. This includes the U.S. congressional races and the race for Arizona's Attorney General and the race for Superintendent of Public Instructions. We know that these key elected positions are responsible for creating, legislating, and determining and enforcing the laws that are created through the legislative process. And this past Monday, Governor Hobbs gave her first State of the State address as Arizona's 23rd governor. After the governor's address, I spoke with Stuart Goodman from Goodman Schwartz Public Affairs to get a few highlights and insights. And we'd like to share that conversation with you all. And after we hear from Stuart, I'll turn things over to Michael to introduce WFSA's legislative priorities for the 2023 legislative session. Hi, Stuart. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for chatting with me. So we have a new governor, Governor Katie Hobbs, and we are very hopeful for this administration. We know with every new administration, there's always optimism. So how's the transition going?
Look, it's great to be here. I think any transition takes a while, right? You have a extended campaign period, and you only get a few months to form a government. What you've seen the last month or so is major announcements on senior policy staff within the administration. You've seen major announcements on a number of state agencies. There are still more to go. You've had resignations as well from the previous administration, and certainly a governor has to manage all of those. At the same time, they got to prepare a budget. They've got to prepare their very first State of the State address. You have all these things competing at the same time. There's also a host of national organizations that are interested in the governor's time. And so I would say, as far as transitions go, they're always clunky, but this one is moving at the pace that all would expect, given the fact that you haven't had a Democratic governor in Arizona since 2009. You are building a team from literally ground zero. The team she's built to date is outstanding. She'll continue to add to that team, but it takes time to find those individuals, and those individuals have to give notice to their previous employers. So you've got a government that has not yet fully hit its stride, but you wouldn't expect it to hit its stride until the beginning of February. Unfortunately, you have to deliver several major deliverables before that date, and that makes it, of course, a challenge.
Yeah, well, we all watched Governor Hobbs' State of the State address on Monday. Can you give us some highlights and insights from her address? I know we at the Women's Foundation heard some positive points from her address that will support women and girls throughout Arizona.
First thing I would tell you, and I've seen more than my fair share of State of the State addresses. When I was in state service, I participated in writing a few. I would say that this, from a delivery standpoint, was arguably the best I've seen in 30 some odd years of actually paying attention to these addresses. And that counts. That counts for something. It counts for a lot, actually. Now, that being said, this wasn't without controversy. You had several Republican members either turn their backs or walk out on the governor as a result of the policies that she was advocating. Look, that's disappointing, right? I think you're always going to have disagreements, and it's not about the governor per se, right? It's not about partisanship, in my opinion. There's a difference between the executive and the legislature in terms of perspective, in terms of responsibilities. Whether you have divided government or you have a unilateral government, there's always going to be conflict. When Governor Napolitano left, everybody was jumping, at least legislatively, they were doing backflips over the idea of Governor Brewer. That lasted no less than 6 months, right? Governor Ducey, certainly by the end of his 2 terms, had certainly a sense of fatigue among Republican lawmakers. The challenges that Governor Hobbs is going to face, or she faced the other day in that chamber, really are just the nature of the office itself. It's really not, in my opinion, focused on her, though that makes the point. And I do hope over time that civility and decorum will take place. You can disagree with the governor can disagree with you, but hopefully over time we all learn collectively as a capital community how better to demonstrate that displeasure. And again, it goes to all parties and all offices. I think the tone she hit on education, on water, on housing, and the recognition that we have shortages of both water and housing, for example, those are tones that members from both parties can relate to, right? Those are nonpartisan issues. The challenge is when you add in some of the partisan rhetoric that we always hear, either the State of the State or in the Republican response. Those things tend to deflect against the real message, which is we have a lot of work to do. These are issues that I, the governor, am open to. That I will work with you on collaborative efforts that move the state forward. Those were the real messages. Were there distractions? Yes. Is there repercussions from those distractions? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, you can't judge a governor in week 2 of an administration. As I said earlier, right? It takes time to staff up. It takes time to get their bearings. It takes time to set the tone in how you want to govern. The legislature certainly has to set its tone, its cadence. They need to learn how to work with a new governor, regardless of party. And there are always going to be growing pains. So unfortunately, the State of the State, sometimes you see those growing pains, very publicly. But as a reality, every governor goes through them. Every legislature goes through them. And I would argue by around end of February or March, everybody will have settled in and figured out how we're all going to get along. And I think you'll see much better governing around, second quarter, if you will, of 23. as opposed to the opening weeks of a brand new understaffed administration.
Hmm. So we did hear about the governor's drive to end taxes on feminine hygiene products and incontinence supplies, including diapers. And that has always been, at least for the past 2 legislative sessions, has been one of WFSA's goals. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? I know that's an effort that we are pursuing again this year.
Yeah, I think there's a number of things happening, right? I mean, the inflation has become a significant political issue. And legislators in general are looking at ways to make differences in everyday lives, right? You mentioned the governor's public statements regarding women and feminine products, diapers. You have legislators in the Senate Majority Plan talking about eliminating the sales tax on food and residential rental units. Those are all very similar in nature in terms of, relatively speaking, small dollar costs, but certainly a big psychological impact in terms of reducing the impacts on individuals that are struggling. And so I think the theme of why this year may be the best year on our issues regarding those matters is because there's a greater legislative sensitivity to having to make things better for the rank and file. And again, I think we fit very nicely into the public debate regarding again, housing and food, and certainly other necessities such as diapers and feminine hygiene products. It's just a perfect storm for our benefit.
Yeah, great. I appreciate that. So the last thing I wanted to ask you about is the budget. We know it's out today. Can you give us any insights, any behind the scenes, anything? Tell us more.
So budgets for the first round are always difficult, right? As I mentioned earlier, governor gets elected in November. It's only been roughly 2 months before she has to put a budget recommendation out for review. I expect that to be a work in progress. We're going through it now. It's like, these are lengthy documents. I don't have any specifics to give you at the moment. What I can tell you though, the most important part of the budget process isn't the governor's recommendations, though that's an important milestone. It's really the budget offices of both the governor's office and the legislature reaching the revenue numbers, right? You have to have the agreement on how much money there is to spend in order to really build a budget. And that's the negotiation, right? Governor's offices tend to have a much more rosy scenario about available revenue. The legislature tends to be more conservative and they want a lower number. And so you have this debate back and forth. Ultimately, they have to reach a number that is politically agreeable to both the executive and the legislature. That's when the real budget work tends to get done. You've got roughly about $2 billion worth of additional funding, surplus funding for the upcoming fiscal year. Most of that is in one-time funding. Budgets are hard, whether you have money or you don't. I think budgets are harder when you do have money, because it's much easier to say no than it is to say yes. And so as a practical matter, let's get the revenue forecast figured out. Then you can look at the executive budget. You'll still be looking at the legislative baseline budget, what they spent last year, and then they will negotiate those priorities. Clearly, water, affordable housing, education, all of those will remain large, big ticket items that will have to be negotiated over the course of the next roughly 178 days before the July 1st fiscal year.
Well, I appreciate that, Stuart. Always appreciate your insight. I know you all are our trusted partners, and you're so great about giving us at the Women's Foundation updates throughout the legislative process. And then we in turn are able to pass those along to our network. So just really appreciate you and your team.
Always happy to be here. Thanks
so much. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Stuart, for that excellent review and insight from the state of SAGES earlier this week. As Stuart mentioned, the governor's budget is out today, and we look forward to reviewing that and sending out highlights through our WE network. And so we are really excited to introduce our 2023 legislative priorities. As we dive into another ambitious legislative session, we have several policy priorities that we will work to move forward during the legislative session by running, supporting, and opposing bills. Now this year, our policy priorities include increasing quality education and workforce training, eliminating the gender wage gap and reducing hiring bias based on gender, stabilizing housing and reducing homelessness, providing external support for women re-entering the workforce, and increasing quality, access, and equity in healthcare. Now, advancing economic, educational, and social supports for women and girls has always been a priority for WFSA. This is reflected by how in 2022, we supported healthcare access for birthing people that resulted in them receiving a huge increase in postpartum maternity care coverage. Additionally, last year, WFSA advocated for and received funds from the governor's office to expand and support our Pathways for Single Moms program. On both fronts, we hope to continue to fight for healthcare justice and workforce training supports for women. Now, to bring the focus back to 2023, this year, we will again aim to eliminate the state sales tax on feminine hygiene products, diapers, and incontinence supplies, all of which we know are necessary supplies that should not be taxed as a luxury. We are excited to announce that earlier this week, our bill sponsor, Senator T.J. Shope, introduced SB 1033 to address this unnecessary economic burden on menstruating people, parents, and individuals. We appreciate Senator Shope for his ongoing dedication to supporting this initiative. We are also thrilled that Governor Hobbs noted the elimination of state sales tax on feminine hygiene products and diapers during her State of the State address on Monday, and we are already working hard on designing some fact sheets with resources and information to pass out that will soon be made available on womengiving.org.
In addition to our legislation regarding eliminating the state sales tax on necessary hygiene supplies, we will also be vocal about a host of other topic areas that we anticipate this legislative session. WFSA is currently talking with legislators about ways we can use the self-sufficiency standard in legislation and also ways to address the benefits cliff, which creates a massive barrier to economic mobility. We will send out more information about these efforts as they develop. Along with what we aim to support, WFSA will continue to be vocal against harmful legislation. This includes bills targeting members of the LGBTQ community, bills aiming to limit bodily autonomy, and bills that disproportionately impact BIPOC communities. Each focus area we've mentioned is backed by research, which we will provide in our 2023 Gender Equity Playbook being released next week. In order to be the first to get the playbook, please make sure you are receiving our Women's Equity or WE Network emails. And Michael will talk more about the WE Network in just a bit. So the Gender Equity Playbook will be a downloadable document which lists our legislative priorities and legislation, data and infographics to better understand and support each of our priorities, and more information on how to use the resources found in the playbook when talking to others about WFSA advocacy and legislative efforts. So you don't want to miss it.
Thank you for that, Gauri. And so as Gauri mentioned, the WE Network is a fantastic way to stay in the loop with all things WFSA advocacy related. Now, when you join the WE Network, you'll receive periodic newsletters that provide updates on issues impacting women and girls, the legislative session, and opportunities to participate in advocacy. Together, we can learn, advocate, and create system changes that benefit women in Arizona. We encourage you to take action now and sign up for the WE Network newsletter. You can sign up now by following that short link on the screen at womengiving.org/advocacy. And for those looking to get a little further involved with WFSA advocacy, this past year, we launched our statewide advocacy coalition as an extension of the WE Network. The coalition's goal is to have representation from across the state, so you and other advocates in your area have the tools to successfully advocate for women and girls of all identities within your district at the state capitol. So again, please navigate to that short link, womengiving.org/advocacy webpage to sign up ahead of our next coalition meeting on February 16th. We also have some additional dates to look forward to for those looking to continue engaging with all of our advocacy work as well. And this includes our Day at the Capitol event on March 8th, which will be an opportunity to meet us in person at the state capitol and really live and breathe this legislative process. So please be on the lookout for an RSVP link that will be sent out via the WE network. And in a similar format to what we're doing currently, we will also be hosting a legislative update event sometime around mid-session. Be sure to register for those WE network emails so you're in the know about these upcoming events. WFSA can move the needle toward a more equitable Arizona because of advocates and donors alike. And with that, I'd like to introduce my incredible colleague, Katia Jones, WFSA's Director of Donor Experience, to talk about WFSA's Time, Talent, Treasure, and Testimony model.
Hello, everyone. My name is Katia Jones, Director of Donor Experience for WFSA. I am pleased to introduce you to our refreshed, innovative approach to philanthropy, the WFSA Giving Collective. Over the past year, we have been doing our work to ensure that our mission, vision, and values are represented in both internal and external relationships. Our values help to drive our Giving Collective initiative towards a new approach for donor relationships. The activities you see WFSA launching this year, including today's legislative kickoff, are wonderful examples of why we are pivoting from transactions to transformation when it comes to philanthropy. Philanthropy, I know, it doesn't always have the best reaction. I'm here to remind you that everyone is a philanthropist. The Giving Collective will celebrate all gifts, not just monetary. We believe in the time you give us to learn more about how you can support our state, the talent you provide to ensure our work is impactful, the treasure or resources that do allow us to get it done, and your testimony, the life journeys you share with us so that we know our work is rooted in truth and led by experience. As our relationship develops, there will be investment in participatory opportunities to earn the amazing WFSA partnership keychain and charms. Each charm represents one of our strategic priorities: advocacy, research, innovation, and investment. For example, you can earn the advocacy charm by joining the WE network and attending at least 2 advocacy events. We will make future announcements of how we will track your participation. We ask that you show up, and a super awesome charm will be yours in no time. The first step to becoming a Giving Collective member is to make a gift. Your contribution, regardless of the amount, is the official invitation to the Giving Collective. Whether you are a first-time donor or a longtime supporter, you can join the Giving Collective today by filling out the form at womengiving.org/Giving Collective. Thank you for your time and your support. Your partnership creates an Arizona where women and girls of all identities thrive.
Now would like to introduce WFSA's first ever advocacy sticker contest. I am so excited about this. This is a fun and creative way for advocates and WFSA supporters to show their artistic talents, for a chance to have their artwork turned into a WFSA branded advocacy sticker. Artwork submissions is now open, and you can find the rules on our advocacy page. There is no age limit and no cost to submit your artwork. We want you to always be represented in our advocacy work. And this is a fun and creative way for WFSA to highlight the talents and creativity of our advocates. So we are so excited to see the artwork that comes in. A few details about their sticker contest. Submissions are now open and will close on January 27th. WFSA will post the top 5 submissions on our website for public voting. And the winner of the sticker campaign will be highlighted and recognized on WFSA's social media and website, and will have their artwork turned into a WFSA advocacy sticker for our network and our supporters. Again, more information is posted on WFSA's website at womengiving.org and on our social media channels. And so that actually reminds me, be sure you like and follow WFSA on Facebook and Instagram. And also Be sure to tell your creative friends and family about this really fun opportunity.
Thank you for that, Gori, and that sticker contest does sound exciting to me. And well, that is it for us today. Thank you all for joining us for WFSA's 2023 Legislative Kickoff event. Again, be sure to register to receive our We Network emails, and we absolutely invite you to join WFSA's Advocacy Coalition. Thank you for joining WFSA and creating an Arizona where women and girls of all identities